Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another episode of Crunch Time with Kruck. This is episode 7. Here at Avila'a University, we are on Easter break, so it's kind of quiet here. What do we got going on today, Max?
Kruck, it's good. We're having a break, right? I wanted to wear a little bit of a golf T-shirt today, show off my golf little pride in this way for the Masters coming up. So good to this way, but it's just good we have a break, right?
And you touched on it. We have the first of the 2 installments of Masters Talk today. So without much more ado, we're going to jump right into it. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the first installment of Masters Talk. Joined at the table with me is my father, Jason Kruckenberg. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing today, Jake?
Good. So, Mr. Kruckenberg, you have 8 years of coaching experience. In that time, you actually sent a player to state, had 3 sectional players and then 12 regional players. You've been golfing for over 30 years and watching the Masters for over 40. So would you say that you're probably qualified to be the Masters talker?
I don't know if I'm qualified, but like I said, I've watched so many Masters, I know them inside and out.
Yeah. And so what makes the Masters so special?
It's just a unique tournament in the fact that it's the only major that's played on the same golf course every single year. The traditions of the Masters is like no others. All the way from the caddies wearing white coveralls to green hats, no sponsors on the caddies at all, to the odd things. The spectators are very strictly enforced what they can and cannot do. No electronics are allowed in, no phones, no pagers, no nothing. Big debate this year was the smartwatches. Are they going to allow smartwatches in? So, things like that to make this tournament different.
You're absolutely right. And, there's 18 holes at Augusta. Which one's your favorite?
By far, number 16. Little par 3, over water. There's water on the left-hand side. It's a type of shot, and anybody that knows golf knows they move the hole each day. And on Sunday, the traditional placement on Sunday is in the back left-hand corner. Now, as you can attest to, because I made you sit and watch how many years of it, the golfer will hit a tee shot and will not even aim at the hole. He'll aim 20 to 30 feet to the right of the hole, because when the ball hits, it curves so far. I've seen professional golfers line up putts, and they won't even be looking at the hole when they hit their putt, and they'll almost make it. It's an incredible, tough, difficult hole.
It sounds very tough. The television setup for the Masters is unique in the fact that they only allow how many commercials?
They allow 4 minutes of commercials per hour, and that's generally 2 one-minute commercials at the top of the hour and then also at the bottom of the hour. And they only have 2 sponsors. So, when you talk about the price of advertising, I have no idea what the Masters price is, but I'm sure it's incredible. Traditionally, the sponsors are Rolex watches and Travelers Insurance.
So, they're definitely paying a pretty penny, and knowing Rolex and Travelers, they probably can afford it. So everybody knows the golf tournament aspect of it, but how much more actually goes into the Masters that we don't know?
Well, one of my favorite traditions of the Masters, and the Masters is just steeped in tradition. There's a par 3 tournament that occurs on Wednesday. The golfers go down, they do a practice round on Monday and Tuesday, and then on Wednesday they have a par 3 tournament. It's at a separate golf course, which is just north of the actual Augusta National. And the guys go out and play, and they traditionally have their kids as caddies. They'll have, you'll see little 4 and 5-year-old kids out there carrying their dad's bag. Now, they don't carry it for all 9 holes, but they'll carry it while the cameras are on. And then a lot of times the dads will let the kids hit a putt or something like that, But it's more laid back, and the guys are talking, and they're kind of jabbing each other, and they're kind of joking, and it's fun to watch. It truly is. And then one of by far my most favorite tradition is the Masters dinner. They have what they call the Champions Dinner. Now, this consists of anyone that is invited to this year's Masters, and all past champions are invited to the Champions Dinner. The menu is picked out by the previous year's winner. So it can be anything from, for a great example is 1998, Tiger Woods won his first Masters at the age of 21. So he decided to have cheeseburgers, chicken sandwiches, French fries, and milkshakes. And that was the Masters dinner. Now, some of the other guys, some of the English golfers have had things such as haggis. If anyone knows what haggis is, that is basically the organs of a sheep stuffed inside the stomach lining and then boiled for several hours. Probably not a big turnout for that dinner, but in contrast, in 2020, when Tiger Woods won his latest green jacket, he had steak and chicken fajitas, sushi, and milkshakes. So key theme here is apparently Tiger Woods likes his milkshakes.
And yeah, you mentioned it. The winner of the Masters gets a green jacket, one of the most prestigious awards in all of sports. But what else do the winners win? You said they get a green jacket, they get to pick their meal. Like, what else?
It's one of the smaller purses. They get just north of $1 million. But it's the green jacket. I mean, anyone that knows that has been out golfing with their dad or their brother or whoever, you're lining up a putt and you're getting a little nervous over it, and the guy playing against you is going to rib you and say, "Hey, this putt's for the green jacket." And I'm telling you, that sends chills down everybody's spine. I mean, it's just it's a unique thing. It's something that no other tournament has.
Well, thank you very much for the great insight. And this has been installment 1 of 2 for Masters Talk. We'll see you next week with the second part. Back to you in the studio. And that is Masters Talk, the first of 2 installments, so make sure to tune in next week to hear more about it. Max.
Kruck, we're going to move over now to talk about the women and men's Final Four matchups. They have both been set now. On the women's side, we have both the number 1 seed in Stanford, and we have the number 1 seed in South Carolina. And also we have number 3 Arizona versus number 1 UConn. And as for the men's side, we have number 1 seed Baylor versus number 2 seed Houston. And then the Cinderella team, UCLA, the number 11 seed, versus right now the favorites on the men's side and the number 1 seed in Gonzaga. Krug, this is both Final Four matchups for both the sides. Interesting sides. We look at it though, it's not a lot of different. You know what I mean? We talked about the men's side. There was a lot of upsets earlier in the Sweet 16 kind of matchups. But think about it, we have 2 1 seeds and a number 2 seed in the men's side. And obviously for the women's side, we have right now it looks like 3 number 1 seeds and a 3 seed. So how do you look at the Final Four matchups, and give me your championship predictions right now?
Well, I'm going to tackle it first on with the men's. My championship predictions are going to be number 2 Houston will be taking on number 1 Gonzaga. UCLA is a Cinderella team, but I don't think they have what it takes. Simply going off the win percentage based on ESPN's stat line, it is a 90% chance that Gonzaga beats UCLA. And that is a lot because UCLA is the number 11th team. But when you break down the stats, UCLA are huge underdogs. They have 11 turnovers in a game, and they can only score on average 73 points per game. When looking at Gonzaga, they're undefeated, 30-0. The only thing I could see happening is they take this game too lightly, and they end up blowing it for themselves. 92 points per game. In the last game I watched with them, they had 80 points with 6 minutes left in the game. That's unbelievable amount of scoring for a college basketball team. 38 rebounds per game, 18 assists, 8.5 steals, and 3 blocks. So they have very active hands on defense and a great job swatting away points. 2 main characters for Gonzaga that you have to be on the lookout for is Drew Timme, gets 19 points per game, 7 rebounds, and 65% from the field. Just an absolute great shooter. And then Corey Kispert, 19 points per game as well, 5 rebounds, 1 steal, 88% from the charity stripe, and then 45% from downtown. Gonzaga is the only team left that is a primarily forward-scoring team. The other three teams like their guard play more than their forward play. But the other side of that matchup, UCLA, Johnny Juzang is the number one player, and 16 points per game, 4 rebounds, 1 steal, but he is 90% from the free throw line, which is great. His backup is Chris Smith, 13 points per game, 6 rebounds, 1 steal, and 50% from the three-point line. But this guy is still kind of a wild card. He's only played 8 games this season. So I'm taking Gonzaga over UCLA in that matchup. What about you?
Well, Kruck, I would probably agree with you with looking at this way. I believe it's going to be Gonzaga versus Houston in at least the men's side of the bracket. You know what I mean? You kind of touched on it with Corey Kispert, Jalen Suggs, Drew Timme. Those are going to have to be impact players for their team. And I just don't believe, yes, UCLA, they've had this deep run. I can't believe what a first 4 team they started at. Now going to the Final Four, that's a great run for UCLA. And obviously they got the pedigree with basketball. John Wooden in his whole time this way. So it's going to be interesting to watch, right? And I think Johnny Juzang's got to be a big piece for them. So, but to me, Houston's defense is going to be a huge key. If Houston's defense can compete with Gonzaga, if it happens they go to the championship game, that's going to be a big matchup to watch. I'm keeping an eye on Quentin Grimes and Dejan Chirot for Houston. 2 big kind of guard kind of players that play tight defense on like opposing offensive players. And Baylor, they're going to have to first watch out this because Baylor shoots the 3. You know what I mean? They like to shoot the 3 with Maceo Teague and Davion Mitchell. Those guys are drive and kick out players for their offense. So for right now, for the men's side, I'm going to say Gonzaga versus Houston. Also, I'm going to touch on the women's side too, Kruck. I'm going to look at this way. When you look at this, UConn has always been the women's team we talk about, right? Gino Ariema, his whole program there. And right now they got a star player in Paige Beckers. She can go at it. She can light the floor up. Right now she's been scoring 19.8 points per game and 6.2 assists a game. That's just really good. You know what I mean? Great stats for her. And also another player as well, Kristen Williams is another player to watch for, another point guard for UConn, possibly make plays against Arizona, which they have a star player, Kruck, and Ari McDonald. She's got 2 30-point games, and she's been Pac-12 player, 2-time Pac-12 player, defensive player of the year. So she's going to have to be locked down on Paige Beckers and that whole offense to help them out. And also, when I look at it, this too, Stanford, another team. I'm looking at all the teams here. Stanford, this team can shoot the 3. If you want to look at a team, they've been making 53-pointers in the NCAA tournament, being 5th in the country shooting the long ball this entire season, which is very impressive for their team. If they want to make a big run, especially playing against UConn and them, that's going to have to be a big offensive presence for them as well. But South Carolina, their team is defense. They have been playing defense all this way. This whole NCAA tournament, they've been holding foes to 34% overall, which is very good defensively. So obviously it's going to be the matchup of can they get the 3 ball off against South Carolina. But for my national championship prediction for the women's side, I pick UConn versus South Carolina. I believe South Carolina's defense is going to get stops over Stanford. But knowing UConn, and they just win it, they always win it a lot, Kruck. And, they always win it. And probably UConn will win it again. That's just what I believe, and we'll see what happens, man.
Yeah, the women's side of the bracket is 3 number 1s and then a number 3 team. Looking at the favorites for each game, Stanford is favored over South Carolina by 6 points, and then UConn is favored over Arizona by 13.5 points, which is a very hot take in my opinion after UConn barely beat Baylor, which, being frank, the Baylor player was definitely fouled at the end of the game. Refs didn't call it. It happens. Refs don't make every call perfectly. But that is still a very favorable point swing to be up 13.5 points. And just looking at their basic stats, UConn scoring 83 points per game. That's the most out of any team left in the Final Four. 42 rebounds per game, 21 assists. They move the ball around a lot. 20 assists is a lot for a team to have, averaging 10 steals and 6 blocks, so their defense is nothing to be stifled with. And then from the free throw line is one of their worst stats, 65%. You got to do better than that.
Yeah, you got to do better.
Looking at their competition, Arizona, they have 67 points per game, so about 15 points less than UConn. Not looking good. 37 rebounds per game, 5 less. 10 assists per game, that's 11 less. They have 10 steals and 5 blocks, so their defensive stats are the same. But the first 3, the primary 3, are all lower. Looking at it, though, their free throw percentage isn't much better at 69%, but 41% from the field when they shoot it, it generally goes in. Stanford versus South Carolina. I'm going to take Stanford. I'm taking both favorites, Stanford and UConn in the finals. Looking at it, Stanford averages 3 more points per game. They average 4 more rebounds per game, 4 more assists, 2 more steals, and then 1 less block. But 6 blocks is still pretty good. These teams are going to be really good. This is going to be a matchup you don't want to miss if you like college women's sports. And then 47% from the field, 38% from beyond the three-point line. Stanford is shooting the ball extremely well, whether in close or out far. It's going to be a great one to watch.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Kruk, both of them kind of had similar stats, you know what I mean, looking at Stanford and looking at South Carolina. That's a matchup I'm kind of looking forward to, you know what I mean, against defense versus offense. You know, because can the defense of South Carolina stop the three-point shooting of Stanford, and can they find a way, if they make it, to, I believe UConn will just beat Arizona. Because I just believe UConn's just too talented. They got Paige Beckers who can just shoot the lights out of anything. You know what I mean? She can just go at it. So I believe those two teams will probably make it for the women's side, UConn versus South Carolina. And then for the men's, again, like you said, Drew Timme, Jalen Suggs, and Corey Kispert, those guys are going to be lights out, I believe, for Gonzaga. And then Houston will find a way. It'll be a close game. I believe this is going to be like a 64-61 kind of game, like a low-scoring kind of game, coming down to the last second, and Houston makes a play to win it. And those two teams will represent the men's side. So it'll be good Final Four matchups this week, Kruk. Can't wait to watch.
Absolutely. And moving forward, the MLB opening day was April 1st. So we're going to talk about it. What do you got for opening day, Max? What's stand out for you?
Kruk, I'm just glad we're first talking about MLB. Can we say that? I mean, glad to have baseball back in general, you know what I mean? And also, glad to have some fans back at games, right? You know what I mean? The fans back at games. I watched one of the games last year. There was a good amount of people at the game, you know what I mean? Watching it, and just, it's great to see baseball take, because baseball is America's sport. It's America's sport. Everyone likes to watch it, and they always like to appreciate baseball over the years and how it's gone. But as for teams, Kruk, I mean, the Dodgers. The Dodgers have been that team, and Mookie Betts, Clayton Kershaw, and now getting Cy Young winner Trevor Bauer. That's a big pickup for them, for their pitching staff, for their offense, and how they're going to work out everything going into this year. But again, the team that everyone's looking at is the San Diego Padres. And, I mean, we're getting that big deal, 14-year deal. Remember we talked about this earlier, that 14-year deal that Fernando Tatis Jr. got. I mean, I hope he can obviously stay up for that whole time. You know what I mean? That's a long contract for him. But I believe he's going to have to be a big impact for the Padres. We look at it, too. Can't sleep on the Tampa Bay Rays in the AL. You know what I mean? Tampa Bay Rays, yes, they lost some players, obviously, with free agency. But Tampa Bay is another team that's going to compete with, obviously, the Yankees. Obviously, the Yankees still with Garrett Cole. That's another big pickup in that offense. But the Bronx Bombers, you can't sleep on Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton. Those guys just, they can hit the ball over the place. And I remember we talked about this. Remember, it was a while we talked about MLB. But I talked about the Toronto Blue Jays and how that team could be an interesting team as well in the AL. Because when you look at it, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., what a fun name to say. Anyways, though, he's going to be a big talent for that offense. And I believe when you look at the Toronto Blue Jays that they are talented. Their pitching staff, too, they're building that up as well, which is a big part of helping them out overall. And the Cardinals, sorry for the NL Central. Yes, the Reds, I wanted them to do well. The problem is they lost a lot of people, and the Reds don't know how to keep people up in Cincinnati. And the Cubs, you know, they're a team that's still trying to rebuild. You know what I mean? They lost a lot of people. They got to find their offense back. But I believe Nolan Arenado is going to be a huge key for the Cardinals. You know what I mean? He's going to be defensively. He's been winning a lot of Golden Gloves over the years, and he makes a lot of plays for their offense with the swing of the bat. So I believe the Cardinals, Dodgers, Padres, for the NL are teams to watch out for. And then for the AL, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and the Tampa Bay Rays are the teams to look out for this MLB season.
I mean, you're absolutely right. Just going to run through them all real quick. The Dodgers actually ended up losing opening day to the Rockies. The Rockies won a score of 8-5. Bellinger had a 2-run shot that Justin Turner thought was caught, so he ended up going back to first. Bellinger outran him, so baseball's tricky like that. Ended up being just an RBI single. So that really screwed over Bellinger. The Yankees, as talked about, they lost their opening day game as well. They lost to the Blue Jays, a score of 3-2. Garrett Cole versus Ryu, the starting pitcher for the Blue Jays. Two great pitchers going at it back and forth. And then Gary Sanchez, one of my favorite Yankees, ended up taking a ball deep and kept the critics at bay for now. You know, they really don't like him. They want to see somebody else behind the plate. But he's proven his worth. The Tigers root out the Indians. The Cleveland Indians lose 3-2. Miggy with his first home run of the year, and he slid into second base. He didn't know it was out of the yard because there was so much snow he couldn't see the ball. But in other words, Shane Bieber ended up pitching 6 complete innings with 12 Ks. The Phillies won in extras versus the Braves. The Braves making it to the division series last year and then ended up losing to the Dodgers. Bryce Harper's cleats were the story of that game. He had fuzzy cleats on. Take it as you will. The Brewers ended up winning in extras against the Twins. The Twins having their home run, basically team out there. Everybody can hit a home run. The Brewers, not one of the best teams, even though they are my favorite. The two players who I don't like the most, Orlando Arcia and Travis Shaw, ended up being the two players who helped the Brewers win the most, so trying to get back in my favor that way. The Pittsburgh Pirates lost to the Cubs, a score of 5-3. Kyle Hendricks pitched for the Cubs and did decently well. I am an anti-Cubs fan as well, so it's nice to see them lose. The Cardinals root out the Reds. Sorry about bringing that one up. But Nolan Arenado gets his first win as a Cardinal. Yeah. Congrats to him.
Congrats, yeah.
Tampa Bay barely beats the Marlins, which is crazy to think about because the Marlins are definitely not one of the better teams, but they still win. Going from the World Series losers to barely beating the Marlins is kind of a step down, but they did lose 2 of their best pitchers. Tyler Glass now is the ace for the Rays after Morton and Snell both left. He ended up pitching 6 complete innings. He had 0 errors and only allowed 6 hits. Slam Diego, or San Diego, as the Padres also call their hometown, beat the Diamondbacks, but the score was insane. 8-7, a very high-scoring game, but the Diamondbacks usually don't post that big of numbers. Yu Darvish started for the Padres. He could not finish the 5th. He went in 6-1, and Eric Hosmer ended the game with 3 for 4. He had a home run, a double, and 3 RBIs. Ketel Marte, as the Diamondbacks say, is the best second baseman in baseball. Debatable. He was 4 for 5. He had a home run, a double, and an RBI. The last one I'm going to touch on, the Royals and the Rangers. 2 of the worst teams in the MLB. The only one that could be probably worse is the Orioles, without Trey Mancini. The Royals ended up beating the Rangers 14-10.
Like a football school there, Kruck.
And there were only 3 errors. The bats were absolutely electric in those games. Both teams opened the game with 5 runs. Both teams scored 2 more runs in the 3rd. The Royals scored 3 more runs in the 4th and 7th. Both teams ended with 5 hits, and the Rangers had 3 errors. What a way to start opening day of 2021 after missing such a large portion of last year's baseball.
Wow, that was a lot of scores there, Kruck. I mean, like I said, it's good to have baseball back, and it's just good to have everything going on. Obviously, when you mention some of the teams, it's early, right? You know, with the Reds and the Rays, obviously we got a long season to go. If they're still planning to play a long season, not like playing, I don't know, like less than 70 or 60 games or something like that last season, so it's a little bit more of a longer season to go. So can't wait to see what happens. So, but Kruck, though, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about something in the NFL that's very questionable or interesting to my eye. So obviously this Tuesday, the NFL owners approved of expanding the regular season to 17 games, which they will expect with this idea will generate additional revenue for the NFL as a whole. This means that the amount of preseason games will only be 3 instead of 4, and having only 1 bye instead of 2. Right now, the season is still beginning to play on Thursday, September 9th, and end for the playoffs on January 2022. The Super Bowl looks like it may be pushed back a week later to February 13, 2022 at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. So, Kruck, how do you feel about having a 17-game season here in the NFL?
Well, I mean, I feel great. All right. Everybody loves football. The NFL, 16 weeks of football is not enough. All right. We get 162 games of baseball, and most people don't sit through a third of them. We need more football. I don't understand why people are getting so upset about it. Football's football. You get paid to go out there and play football. You get paid millions of dollars. I get paid cents to sit here and talk to you guys. Oh, yeah, by the way, Tim, I need my money. So, the matchups we're looking for. The Packers versus the Chiefs in one of the Week 17 games. That's going to be a great game. Chiefs, great team. The last couple of years, Patrick Mahomes, Kelsey, Hill, the Honey Badger, if he's good. Last year he wasn't, but okay. The Packers, I hate Aaron Rodgers, but he's good. Everybody on the team's good. It's insane. That game is going to be great. Both teams made the conference championship last year. Both teams are going to be great again unless something drastic happens. Another matchup I'm looking at, the Bears and the Raiders. Both teams are middle to lower of the pack teams. That's going to be a wild card game. Winner of that will probably make the wild card, and the loser will probably have to sit out. Even though they're in different conferences, AFC and NFC, they're going to be needing those games to make the conference most likely. Another one I'm looking at, Seahawks, Steelers. Both teams, once again, that's kind of a playoff game right there. You win or go home type deal. They could screw each other out of the playoffs. Russell Wilson hasn't performed well in the playoffs since his Super Bowl, his 2 back-to-back Super Bowl years. But the Steelers, they do need some better luck, and they need to tell Juju to stop dancing on the field. The Cowboys versus the Patriots. Another game that's like both teams are usually 8-8. The Cowboys got lucky this year. They cannot end the season 8-8. So you just got to look at that one. That's going to be another wild card potential seed there, and it should be a close game. The one that I think is going to be the best game out of Week 17, though, is going to be Browns-Cardinals. Both teams have the potential of being great, absolutely great. The amount of star talent on their teams are outrageously high. The only problem is they have to finally work together and figure out that they are good. Once they do that, that game could go down as one of the best. Max.
Kruck, here's what I believe. You know what I mean? I'm glad, like you said, I appreciate having more football, right? I appreciate having more football and all those games that you mentioned. I mean, it's great all those games are coming back, right? And having those this way. But I believe adding an additional game could also possibly push harm in a certain direction for the players. And I say it that way is because the NFL, here's the thing. Once you get to the NFL, you are part of that this way, your whole life. You would put your all and your soul into play in the NFL and be a part of that whole organization. And when I look at it, possibly having a possible sense of an injury or of any sort going on is a problem. You know what I mean? You don't want to have that. There's things going on. And teams that get into the playoffs, having 16 games over 17, I mean, one game I hope doesn't make a difference. You know what I mean? Like one game could be this way of if something happens or doesn't happen heading into the playoffs. And for me personally, I believe having a risk of injury is a problem for players like that in the NFL. You know what I mean? And I hope that it can work out. Obviously, they wanted to add it for more additional revenue purposes and add more games, had the excitement of the NFL. But obviously, no one wants to get injured, right? No one wants to get injured or have possible injuries going on. So that's how I personally feel about it. So,
well, I mean, we've talked about this before. If the NFL wants to add more revenue, get rid of the Pro Bowl. The Pro Bowl is one of the least watched games every year. And don't do what other people say and have the 2 worst teams battle for the first-round pick because nobody wants to see 2 bad teams battle anymore.
Yeah.
Have the 2 losers from the conference champions play in that game for kind of like a consolation Super Bowl. It'd still be a good game because both teams are good. And the Packers would make it probably every year because they can never make the Super Bowl. But, just if you want to make more money, you have to make better games. Now, yes, teams do have to play people in their division and et cetera. They have set schedules, but you have to have better football for more profit. It's simple.
Yeah.
And since we're talking about football, let's go into a dream situation of football. What we have today, we're going to be discussing the Dream Oklahoma drill, where I am the offensive player, Max is the defensive player. And we have each selected 5 players. I selected 2 running backs and 3 O-linemen. Max selected 3 D-linemen and 2 defensive backs. And we're going to see who lines up against who for the Dream Oklahoma Drill. It's pretty simple. The running back has to run 10 yards past the line of scrimmage, and the defense is trying to tackle the running back. So, Max, who do you got for your first D lineman?
Kruck, my first D lineman that I picked was defensive end Bruce Smith. They used to play for the Buffalo Bills. Now, this guy was a beast when he played. He played for the Buffalo Bills from 1985 to 1999, then ended his career with the Redskins from 2000 to 2003, voted to 11 Pro Bowls. 11 Pro Bowls. That I don't know what you got on the offensive end, but that's a lot there going on. First team All-Pro, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, for me, that guy, I don't know what you got on the line, but he's going to be feisty, man, getting at you there. And 200 total sacks in his career. That looks like a freak to me going on. And I'll just mention one more, Kruck. Aaron Donald's D tackle I picked as well. Aaron Donald, obviously, yes, he's playing right now, but he's voted already to 3 Pro Bowls right now. And first team All-Pro 2 times. He also set the fastest record in the 40 time that's in the scouting combine for a defensive tackle. That's, to me, when I look at me, I'm a speed person. I like speed, athleticism, and you want to get after the quarterback, you're a fast guy, defensive tackle, that's going to be important to me. And he has a high motor to win. I always appreciate that. If you have a high motor to win and you want to help your team out, that is important to me. So for the D-line right now, I got Bruce Smith, Aaron Donald. What do you got on the offensive line, Krupp?
Well, on my offensive line, for the 2 people who I'm taking Larry Allen with the Cowboys, one of the greatest guards ever to play the game, even though the Cowboys' best O-line ever was in 2016 after they got Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott. It was voted on 2016. But Larry Allen, when I saw that man do, I don't know how many reps at 225 at the Pro Bowl, I was like, wow, that is a man. That is who I aspire to be. And he's going to be one of my offensive linemen because I think he can move just about anybody out of his way. And then my other O-lineman, a guy from Cincinnati, Anthony Munoz.
Yes.
I mean,
that's a good pick right there, actually.
Not much more you can do. He's a left tackle, and he is one of the best to ever play, standing at 6'6", 280 pounds. I mean, the man is just a giant. My honorable mention, Travis Frederick with the Cowboys. He was drafted in 2015, and he ended up playing until the 2019 season. He actually grew up around where I'm from. I got to meet him. And he's a local guy. I really like him. He was up for the Walter Payton Man of the Year award in his last year. He played center for the 2016 Cowboys O-line. So he is considered one of the best centers to ever play. And then I really like him. In the backfield, my starting running back in the backfield is Bo Jackson. Because Bo knows. Bo knows how to do it. I mean, the man ran over the Boz. He was so good that he could even go over to baseball and play. And then he broke a bat over his head. Didn't make him any smarter, though. The Techno Bowl superstar Bo Jackson is the guy I got in the backfield because I think he can run over any linebacker. My honorable mention for running back, Earl Campbell with the Oilers. I mean, the man wasn't the fastest in the world, but if he put his head down and ran straight forward, he'd run through a brick wall, turn around, and then run through it again. I mean, he's big, mean, he's lean, and he's unstoppable. Who do you got to stop those two?
Kruck, I actually got 2 players that I believe will stop both of those running backs. Even though I appreciate Bo Jackson, I love Bo Jackson this way. But Lawrence Taylor, that man was a beast. Lawrence Taylor, to me, was one of the best defensive players and one of the idols I look up to as a football player myself. He is right now been a 2-time Super Bowl champion, 3 NFL Defensive Player of the Year awards, 10 Pro Bowls, NFL sacks leader, had 132.5 total sacks. And 20.5 sacks, 20.5 of those were in 1986. To me, Lawrence Taylor is one of the best defensive players I've ever looked up to. But also, Dick Butkus, for me, Chicago guy, really good. I believe he is another person that if he was in his prime and playing this way, could beat up your players. He's earned 5 All-Pro nominations, and he entered the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1979. And, Kruck, when I'm looking at it, man, I see you pick Bo Jackson, Earl Campbell. I was a little sketchy when you said Earl Campbell there because I'm looking at it because Lawrence Taylor, Dick Butkus, I mean, and then for defensive backs, just to put that in there, I get it. Prime time, Deion Sanders, he was good. He made a lot of plays. But for me, when I'm looking at Oklahoma drill, we're talking about tackling, being physical, right? Rod Woodson, to me, is a beast and can tackle people better than Deion Sanders did in his time. He had 1,163 tackles. He was a superior, like I said, more superior tackle than Deion Sanders. Even though Deion Sanders made a lot of plays, that's why he's called primetime. But he also blitzed a lot from the secondary, which they did a lot of corner blitzes, and that would really make him special. So, Kruck, when I look at my defense, I don't know, man. I believe I could probably beat your offense. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it's 100% hypothetical. I mean, Larry Allen, I think he can move just about anybody and their brother, probably their car as well. Anthony Munoz, he's just a mean guy. He's going to get down there. He's going to get the job done. But as mentioned, hypothetical, we can't really put this to the test because most of these guys are too old to put on shoulder pads and a helmet anymore. But moving forward, we have Avila''s Wild Weekend, Part 2. Last week we talked about Avila''s Wild Weekend. They had a bunch of games going on. This week they have just as many, if not more. What do you got on that, Max?
Kruck, we got, like you said, a crazy week in this week. First, I want to shout out to our women's volleyball team. Obviously, they had a tough loss yesterday against the number 1 seed in the Ottawa Braves in the second round of the tournament. If you think about it, though, they had a great season. They went to 2-10 last season in conference play to 5-5 overall, being 500 in conference play, which is a big step up for that program. So, congrats to them, and I hope you guys again. They have a great season next year, and they do well in the upcoming seasons. But for baseball, like we said, we have a 3-game. Obviously, today is going to start the 3-game series today against Southwestern today, so that's another big series for the baseball team, trying to get on the winning track themselves. For our soccer team, women's soccer team, they're going to hold a playoff game today against Bethany Swedes, which is a big game. You know what I mean? They want to one of the first times they're hosting the game as itself, so it's going to be a big, important game for them to win. Cortland Ash, Megan Nugent got to be big goal scorers for this team today. They got to step up. And Madison Baker, she's got to make saves, right? She's got to make saves, help the team out overall for them to get a dub today against Bethany. And obviously our football team, Kruck, we got our senior day tomorrow, which will be a game against Sterling. We should win that game. You know, Sterling's not, you know, they're not that great, right? They're 0-8. We should be able, if we are focused and we stay on task, we should be able to win. John can make some throws. Our defense can make some plays. We should be able to get the dub, Kruck. You got anything else?
I mean, I'm going to tackle it one sport at a time. Baseball, 3 games against Southwestern. Looking at the stats, Avila'a baseball, they're hitting .260, slugging .415. They have a grand total of 183 hits, 33 doubles, and 21 home runs. Southwestern is batting .310, slugging .466. They have 200 hits, 39 doubles, and 18 home runs. The key takeaway from this, when Avila'a hits the ball, they hit it farther and they hit it longer than when Southwestern does. Southwestern kind of plays that small ball. Women's soccer versus Bethany, this KCAC tournament, first round. Avila'a has 23 goals, 92 saves, which breaks down to about 6 saves per game, and then 5 shutouts. Bethany has 18 goals, 61 saves, so about 5 saves per game, and only 4 shutouts. The key takeaway, Avila'a needs to score quick, get momentum in their favor, and try to get Bethany kind of down on themselves, second-guessing, in panic mode. Football. Avila'a football is number 19th right now in NAI, an outstanding feat.
Yeah.
When you look at the KCAC conference, we have 4 ranked teams. Bethel at 15, Avila'a 19, Southwestern at 22, and then Kansas Westland at 24. So a lot of great competition that we have played this year. And just looking at it, Avila'a is number 2 in first downs per game, averaging just over 27. They're number 4 in total rushing yards at 1,855. They're number 6 in total offense per game, right under 500 yards per game. Number 6 in total scoring. They've scored 325 points this season. That's an outstanding feat. Number 7 in NAI in total passing yards, 2,041. The key takeaway here, Avila'a needs to crush Sterling for a chance to make the playoffs. Avila'a needs to jump 2 seeds to be in the chance, 3 seeds to almost be guaranteed. But Avila just needs to go out there and crush them, take all of the wind out of their sails in the first quarter. Lastly, I'm going to touch on the Southball doubleheader against Oklahoma Wesleyan University. Avila is batting .266 and slugging .280. They have 111 runs, 156 hits, and then 10 home runs. Oklahoma Wesleyan is batting .363, slugging .557 with 211 runs, 294 hits, and then 29 home runs. I actually looked this up. Avila has only played 4 less games than Oklahoma Wesleyan, but Oklahoma Wesleyan has been on a bit of a slump recently, going 5 for 5 in their last 10 games. Avila went 7 for 3 in their last 10 games. Oh. So the key takeaway, Avila's on a hot streak. They need to keep it up, and they need to slide just right through these softball players and get out of the weekend with 2 more wins.
Yeah, great stats there, Kruck. And like I said, I wish all the teams luck this week. Hopefully we can all get dubs, and, we can have a great weekend, Kruck.
I mean, you're absolutely right. So, as always, this is Jacob Krukenberg, Max Williams. Thank you for showing up, and we'll see you next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe.